So let me start right off by saying thank you for clicking on this video. And I say thank you because I know and I understand that for a lot of women, the whole topic of being a man's piece pisses some people off, all right? Like, it gets on some women's nerves. And one of the first rebuttals or things that are said in response is, well, why do I have to be his piece? Why can't he be my piece? And I'm in full agreement. Listen, peace is a two-way street. I'm in no way saying it's only on the woman. However, this is my channel that focuses on the women. I have a separate channel that focuses on the men. And so when I speak to you, I have to speak directly to what you can control and what's going to help enhance your life and your relationships. Also, I want you to understand and keep in mind, as I explain to you how to achieve being a man's piece, this is really, I don't want to use the word weapon, but this is really a tool for you to expose who is right for you and who isn't, who is worth your time and who is not worth a second of it. The reason being, or the way that it's used as a tool is because when you are coming with your best self, pouring in all these wonderful positive ways, right? If that guy does not step up to the plate and show appreciation, respect, honor your efforts, that tells you right there it's not worth your time to move forward. However, if he does, then we know, okay, he's on the same page. When you hold back and you don't put forth a certain kind of effort, you make it harder to expose people. I always say you can't drive out darkness with more darkness. Well, I don't always say it. The Bible says it, or there's other scriptures that say it, whatever. The point is, wherever the saying came from, you use light to drive out darkness. And so being someone's piece, which, let's be real, starts with you being your own piece, is going to let you shine a light to expose men a hell of a lot easier, okay? But let's get to it. How to be a man's piece, because people throw that phrase around a lot, but they don't really explain and break it down. The first thing that I have to highlight is greet a man with love. Here's what I'm talking about. I've been coaching for a long time. It's been like over 13 years. And I've seen a lot of couples where man can come home. They can see their man. Let's say he's coming from a trip and she's picking him up from the airport. There's no kiss hello. There's no warm embrace. There's nothing loving going there. Now, I know some of you may be thinking off the bat, well, if she's not doing that, maybe it's because she's not happy or he's not doing something right. Granted, that can be the cause at times. However, there are a lot of women, due to having walls up, due to a struggle with being more affectionate, because being affectionate requires vulnerability for various reasons, or may feel like, well, why should I have to be the one to do it? Why can't he be greeting me? Now, again, I'm in no way denying or disagreeing with the idea of the man pouring back into you. But we're focusing on what you can control. And so I want to encourage you as a woman that when you are dating a man, when you are in a relationship with a man, when you are married to a man, that you ask yourself, am I welcoming him with love? Am I greeting him with positive, loving, desirable energy? And when I say desirable, not just in him desiring you or what would make him desire you, but showing him that you desire him, showing him you are happy to see him, all right? And getting in the practice of doing that. Because think about it for yourself, and I'm going to use kids for a second. If any of you have kids and you come home, it's a great feeling to have your children come to you and embrace you with love versus you walk in the door and the first thing they're doing is bringing you complaints, negative energy, stressful situations, things of that nature. And let me say, that's another reason why sometimes a woman may not bring that love or greet her man with love, is because she may be in her feelings about something, not about what he is or isn't doing, but dealing with the stress of life and sometimes not realizing that she's she's bringing that to him first before bringing the positive energy and love. It doesn't mean we should not be making space and time to address that. It doesn't mean your feelings as a woman does not matter, because they do. However, we do have to learn how to manage those things in a way that we don't let the negativity consume us and basically now be the dominant energy in the relationship. So at the end of the day, going back to the example of the kids, it feels good. And again, I know it would feel great for him to do the same. And if I'm talking to the men, I would tell them the exact same. But as I talk to you, yes, ask yourself, how are you greeting him with love? So whether that be kisses on the cheek or kiss on the lips, a hug, I'm happy to see you, words of affirmation, something. And whatever that something is should be based off of the man that you're dealing with. All right? Because one man may want to hear words. Another man may just want your touch, your hugs, your kisses, whatever the case may be. Another man may just want you to make space for him to come home, breathe, and relax for a moment before fully engaging. Whatever it is, talk to each other about it. And again, discuss these things in the dating phase as well, so that now you can create an environment where you're both getting the love that you need. Now, before I move on to the next point, let me mention this, because I know there's many of you who may be uncomfortable with that level of affection. All right. You may have grown up in households where that wasn't the case. And so you're not accustomed to this kind of affection. And I understand it. I'm in no way want to dismiss your experiences and your struggles in that area. However, I do not want you to allow that to be a scapegoat. I don't want you to simply say, well, that's just who I am. No, that's a product of the environment you were exposed to, but it's something that can be improved upon. And so this is why I say to you, you want to create structure and basically practice the affection. And we can start small. So going back to the idea of, when he comes home, how you greet him, let's say maybe you're not ready for all big old loving hugs and all that. Maybe you're more comfortable starting with a simple kiss on the cheek. Okay. And that's your way of kind of getting used to it. But the goal has to be working up towards whatever that greeting is that we both really want in this relationship. But there's nothing wrong with starting slow, easing your way, and practicing, because through practice, it will become second nature to you. Now, there may be deeper rooted issues that need to be addressed. We'll touch on that later on in the video. But outside of anything like that, it's just about creating structure and practice, and that will help you get there. All right, so let's get to number 2. And the second way to be a man's peace is to understand when and how to communicate with him. All right. Now, this is a big one. Like this might be the biggest one of them all. Again, when I think about the couples I've sat down with and seeing what has caused so much destruction, so much chaos, it in most cases is unhealthy communication. Notice I didn't even say lack of communication. No, unhealthy communication. So yes, a lack of it is part of what makes it unhealthy, but it's in how we're speaking to each other, the timing of the way that we want to bring up certain issues and concerns. And basically, here's the big one, becoming very emotionally selfish in a relationship. So emotional selfishness can create so much problems because in it, and let's just make it simple, in being emotionally selfish, you get caught up in just how you feel, not considering how they feel. All right. You're making your perceptions and feelings top priority to the point where it trumps however they're feeling about something. And when we get to a place like that, that's going to be unhealthy because now people will feel dismissed. They will feel devalued. They will feel unheard. All right. And that causes people to shut down. And again, if it was being done to you, and for some of you, you've been through that. You've been with that man who's narcissistic, who's emotionally selfish, and you know how that made you felt. All right. It didn't feel good at all. It's very frustrating, and it creates a lot of chaos within us and within the relationship. So we have to make sure we're not engaging in that as well. So with that emotional selfishness, this is where we have to learn that, yes, we have to be able to express ourselves and talk about things. And for those of you who might say, well, when I try to talk to him, he don't want to talk. He doesn't listen. Then why are you with him? Like, there comes a point where if you are taking a positive, loving approach to trying to communicate, and you're simply dealing with a man who refuses to respect that and communicate with you, then we have to make the tough decision of walking away. That's the reality, because nothing's going to change if you just entertain and essentially enable him. As long as you remain with him, when he is unwilling to talk, then you're essentially saying, I'm willing to accept this. Okay? And he's not going to change. And regardless of whatever the root issue of his unwillingness to communicate is, because it could be the way he was raised, his own deeper rooted issues. It could be breakdowns in your relationship. It could be all these things. Regardless, if he's unwilling to work on fixing it, right, at least working towards being better. So even if we can't expect him to be perfect with communication tomorrow, but if he's not even willing to work on making progress, then what are we doing here? But going back to being emotionally selfish and understanding that when we talk about being a man's piece, what happens to so many relationships and what happens to so many men is that he's dealing with a woman that many times will just emotionally dump on him. All right. And just drop all this stressful energy. Now, here's what tends to happen in many cases. If that man really loves you, he's really about you, he's going to want to listen, and there's the natural inclination to want to fix. Okay. Now, if I'm speaking to the men, I think men have to learn you can't be so focused on fixing. You have to be focused on loving. Okay. And that in many moments, the woman wants to just be heard. She wants to be loved. She wants to be consoled. She wants to know you have her back. It's not about necessarily fixing in that moment. So I want to say that to you because I acknowledge that for many of you, that's the case in many situations. But I want you to understand the man's natural inclination is to fix. Now, once that man has sat down, discussed with you, we went through everything, right? There's a tendency by some women to want to keep going. like we done been talking about this. We done addressed every single angle of this. And let's just say this is a situation where there were ways to talk about how we fix or resolve, right? And we've done all that. But now you're not just talking anymore. You're just dwelling. Okay? And the dwelling is draining. And this is where, as a woman, you have to recognize, okay, you know what? This man has sat with me. He's listened. He's talked to me. Let me appreciate that. And let me recognize when I'm crossing the line of not just expressing, but dwelling. And dwelling can cause a lack of peace. Okay? Because now his patience or his ability to stay in this conversation starts to dwindle. Now his energy starts to be off. Now you get mad at his current energy, not realizing he just couldn't keep this going for too long. All right. So I don't want to keep this point. I feel the need to stop right here and say this. I'm going to have to make another video just about this crossing the line of dwelling and draining and the role that plays in causing a lot of problems in relationships. But let's move on from that. Let me just say, to wrap up this overall point, learning when and how to speak to him. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. It's about learning how to express yourself in a positive and loving manner. All right. And if you're struggling with doing that, we have to get to the root of why. It's also understanding that there's the right time to discuss things. And so I'll say this before we move on to the next point. There's a tendency by a lot of people to bring up issues in bad moments. So it's like y'all already are having a stressful or negative moment, and now you feel the need to bring up a certain beef you have with him, a certain concern or issue you have with him. And it's like, he's already in a defensive mode. This is not the time where he's going to be receptive to you. All right. And it feels like you're trying to dump more stress on an already stressful situation. What would be more effective, and I want to make clear, this is when you're dealing with someone who is about communicating with you, loves you, wants to make things work. What would be more effective is when we are in a good place, let's discuss these things that we can now, that need to be addressed, or do it via a letter. Because in a letter, it allows him time to process within his own space rather than, all right, we're already dealing with something stressful and now you're adding more stress onto the situation. I can take this letter, I can go back in my little corner, read it, understand it, and then we can come back and discuss it, you know? So consider how you talk about things and how you express things if you want to truly bring a man more peace. All right, so now we're on to the third thing you can do on being a man's peace. And that is making sure he's good. So what do I mean by that? I mean by being attentive and aware of your man's needs, of your man's energy, of whatever it is that's going to pour into him. So I feel the need to say this. You know, one of the things that you find is men who are very attached to their mothers. Okay? Now, I don't condone that, or I don't support that in the sense that I think that when a man is too attached, it can get to a point of being unhealthy, and a woman as yourself should not have to deal with that level of being a mama's boy. All right. Because when it's the level of he'll allow his mother to run the relationship, have too much power over the situation, will prioritize her over his own wife, that to me is a problem. However, the reason why I brought up mother is because, again, when you look at those situations where the man's attached to his mom, one of the common things you will see is a mother who's very attentive to her son. Are you good, baby? You need anything? You know, making sure he's fed, making sure he's, stress-free, whatever it is, she's trying to pour into him. Now, yes, it may cross a line to where she's coddling him too much and not allowing him to grow as a man. But the point is that level of attentiveness, it's a very desirable trait. It is definitely something that brings peace because, again, it shows that you care. It shows that you're not all about yourself. Because one of the big complaints that men make about women is selfishness. Plain and simple. A lot of women, more than you may realize, all right, maybe it's not you, but some of your friends, some of your mothers, some of your sisters, selfish as hell. Like, to a level you don't understand. And they're not telling you this outside the relationship, right? Like, they're not giving you the stories of how selfish they really are and how they're driving their men crazy and making their men feel drained, okay? And so it's made a lot of men, some of the reasons why some men are so, I'm going to use the word toxic. And so now they become overly selfish because out of being guarded is because they've been used by so many women. All right. But that's a whole nother story. The point is, you want to make sure you're showing that side of that. No, it's not all about you. It's about making sure he's good. And in doing that, again, it goes back to when I mentioned earlier about greeting him with love, is learning what are the things he wants you to be attentive about. What does he want you to be mindful of and make sure he's good on, all right? But also using your superpowers as a woman. And I say that specifically because that superpower that women tend to have, right? There's exceptions to every rule, is attention to detail. As a woman, typically, you're very good at picking up on all the little things. And I think what happens is, a lot of women, when they've been hurt, when they feel like they've given a man too much in their life and they've been now used, they now shut that superpower off in the sense that they still pick up on the details, but they're like, no, I'm not going to do that. It's doing too much. Nah, if I show him too much love, then that's when he's going to take advantage of me. No. If you show him that level of love and attention and awareness and he takes advantage, that he's exposed himself as not worthy of your time and your attention. But don't shut it off, because you're going to end up shutting it off from the right guy. You know what I'm saying? Who's going to love and appreciate that. You're fully capable. You really are, if you just allow yourself to tap into that nurturing side. And you can be a nurturer and a lover and all these things, but not turn blind to foolishness. Because that's the mistake that women have made. It's not the being the nurturer and the giver. It's turning a blind eye to foolishness. You have to learn how to live in both of those things, how to see very clearly, right? And not be in denial of what you see and what you feel and what your intuition, your spirit is telling you, while still living in the fullness of your nurturing, loving abilities. That is when you are walking in your true strength, your full power, your real self. It will make you happier, because now you're not restricting yourself anymore. And again, it would allow you to expose and see what you're dealing with more clearly. And if you are dealing with the right man, it's going to allow you to build an amazing relationship. All right, now before I continue, be sure to take advantage of the opportunity to join my special coaching program. Go to receivingmyblessings.com. Click the link in the description or in the comments section. It's a program where I'm answering your questions. We're doing live Q&As twice a month, getting all your questions answered. There's all kinds of modules and videos on tapping into your feminine energy, healing, learning how to hear from God, learning how to meet relationship-minded, serious, intentional men, right? Good men, right? Desirable men. So all that good stuff and so much more. So again, go to receivingmyblessings.com. Thousands of women have already joined, and many have graduated onto amazing relationships. So I want that to happen to you. So join us with it. All right. So let's keep this going. And the next way to be a man's peace is to exude positive energy. Okay? So at the end of the day, positivity brings peace. Negativity brings stress. It's as simple as that. All right? And when someone has to deal with a negative partner, and specifically in this scenario, a man dealing with a negative woman, it creates all kinds of stress and wreaks havoc. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, I see plenty of men dealing with, entertaining, marrying negative women. Just because they do that, number one, I can guarantee you 99%, if not 100% of those situations are very unhealthy, toxic situations. And that man has brokenness within him that he has not resolved that would even allow him to attach himself to that. So you do not want to look at that and say, that's the example or that's the proof that I can be negative, all right? And a man will want me, or I can have a relationship with a man. No. I mean, you can have one. It's not going to be a good one. And why would you want to stay in a negative place for yourself? Forget him for a second. Think about how it makes you feel. It's not good for you. It's not healthy for you. So again, as I said in the beginning, being his peace starts with being your own peace, right? That's for your benefit, most importantly. And then it pours out into anyone else who comes around you. So positivity is important. And though I was going to mention it later, let me mention it now. If you are struggling with being positive, then that is one of your greatest indicators that you have unresolved past hurts, disappointments, traumas that you need to flush out of your system. It is proof that you need essentially an emotional detox. And it's basically, you got to go through the healing process. All right. And doing that is going to help make all these things on this list that I'm mentioning way easier to do. It's going to become so much more second nature for you when you have now pushed out all that negative energy, all those negative perceptions that have been built up through your past experiences. Okay. So when you hear these things, I hope none of them made you want to throw up. All right. If you heard it and it disgusted you, that right there is a sign you got some negativity in you that needs to be released. Okay. Don't just say, well, that's just who I am. Don't just say, well, he needs to accept that part of me. Don't get me wrong. We're going to have negative moments, but when someone is consistently negative, that means we have something to work on. Don't be ashamed of that. Don't feel bad about that. Embrace that. Go on the journey. You can, all the steps are laid out in the coaching program I just mentioned, right? Or you can also check out Love After Heartbreak, my book. But either way, and I don't care how you do. I don't care if you go to another therapist, coach, a pastor. Man, I just want you to heal. I just want you to get to a better place. All right. I want you to be happier. And yes, that's going to make it so much easier to be positive and bring that positive energy into your dating experiences and into your relationships. All right. So now, I lost count, but let's just say it. The next one on the list of how to be a man's piece is show him appreciation. All right. This is another big one, believe it or not. I think a lot of women underestimate how unappreciated a lot of men feel in their relationships, in their dating process, in the efforts that they're trying to make. And I think part of that lack of appreciation, two things hit in my spirit that I feel the need to say. One reason why it tends to happen a lot more than a woman may realize, even for herself, is because showing appreciation requires vulnerability. All right. Showing that you're thankful and giving that love and that warmth that comes from what he's been pouring into you. That requires a level of vulnerability that a lot of women are scared to show because, again, what they've been through before, what they have not resolved, feeling like their showing of appreciation in the past has gone unappreciated, right? And so there's a wall up there. And that wall needs to be brought down so that you can fully show there's nothing wrong with saying thank you. And not just saying thank you, because I just did a show in London. So I did a couple tour events out there. Long story short, I have these VIP brunches before the event. And one of the women who were at the brunch, because everybody gets to ask their questions and all these different things. It's a very wonderful experience. You should check it out if I'm coming to your city. Let me just plug it right now because we're doing a tour in the fall. It's called Heal My People Tour. Just go to my site, stephonspeakshop.com. You'll see the tab for live events. Always check that out because whether it's this tour, future tours, that's where you can know when I'm coming to your city and doing things like this. But let me continue. Long story short, she mentioned a scenario where a man did something chivalrous for her. He said thank you. She said thank you, but there was still he responded a negative way. And when we dug deeper, what I was able to discover was her thank you was a very yeah, thank you. It wasn't this warm, loving, positive thank you. It was kind of this cold-ish thank you, right? This kind of obligatory, I'm going to say it because I have to say it, not because I really want you to know that I really appreciate it, okay? And whether you realize or not, people can feel that energy. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes your words may be correct, but your energy is all wrong. And so when I say showing appreciation, you want to make sure it's coming from within. It's not just in the words. It's in your full self. And that's why it requires vulnerability. That's why it requires you bring that wall down so that you can say it. Okay. Now, the other reason why a lot of women overlook that they may not be showing appreciation is what I call the he's supposed to do that attitude, or he's supposed to do that mindset. Where, well, he's supposed to do that. Why do I need to say thank you? He needs a cookie? I could have done that myself. Stop doing that. Yeah, okay, you could have done it yourself, but he did it for you. And there's no such thing as he's supposed to do that because everything that we do for someone is a choice that we're making. You've probably dealt with enough men who didn't do that, so why would you overlook a man who does? Or why would you diminish and devalue his effort when he does? If we learn how to appreciate, we will get more in return. I always say appreciation breeds production, okay? And appreciation creates a more positive, healthy, loving environment. So you want to make sure, and again, I have to say, learn the ways that he likes to feel that appreciation as well. But make sure you're tapping into that if you want to bring peace and love to your relationship. All right, so we got 2 more, and I'm going to try to not make these too long, right? You know, I can kind of go on and on sometimes. But anyways, number 6, the 6th thing to bring a man peace is to listen to his words and be willing, hear me out when I say this, be willing to take his guidance. Don't throw a shoe at me right now. Hear me out, okay? So, listen, let's start with listen to his words. Again, a lot of women sometimes do not realize that they're not the greatest listeners, okay? And sometimes because of their emotions and being emotionally selfish in that moment, they're more focused on how they feel and how they're feeling from what he's saying than actually processing and understanding what's being said, okay? It's almost like where, quick example, there was a couple, they went to a counselor. I'm making this a quick story. Went to a counselor. The counselor asked the wife, or asked the husband, tell her how you feel. He tells her how he feels. He asks the wife, all right, repeat verbatim what he just expressed to you. And the next hour, she was saying, well, what did he mean this? He was trying to say that. Like, it was her interpreting. It was her projecting her feelings onto it rather than actually listening to what he was saying and being able to repeat it. She couldn't repeat it because she was not truly listening correctly. So as a woman, when you don't listen like that, that is going to set the stage for problems and taking away peace, because now in not listening, but instead interpreting or allowing your feelings to dictate what you're processing, it tends to lead to you maybe getting defensive, you internalizing things, you taking things the wrong way, and that's where the chaos starts, all right? And now we ain't got no more peace, okay? So you got to be mindful of how you listen and being willing to really allow yourself to take in what the man is saying. Now, in regard to taking his guidance, okay? Listen, I know you're a grown woman. I know you are fully capable of making decisions and leading yourself in certain ways, all that good stuff, okay? But if you've been watching my videos, then you know I do believe that the man being the leader is the most effective, happiest, harmonious dynamic for the vast majority of people. There's exceptions to every rule, but for the vast majority of people, that's going to work. And when you are unable to take his guidance, and don't get me wrong, if the man's giving you some stupid guidance, okay, I get it. But there comes a point where if he's only giving you stupid guidance, all right, then why are you with a stupid man? Like, it's like, why do we even choose him if he's not even capable of sometimes giving some good guidance? Now, I do think that there are times where the guidance really wasn't bad. It really wasn't stupid, but your pride may be getting in the way. You thinking that I know better than him may be getting in the way. Your struggle with being vulnerable and again, taking guidance requires a level of vulnerability is getting in the way. And let me make clear to you, listen, I think all of us, men and women, we have to learn how to humble ourselves and take guidance in certain moments. Whether that be the man even taking guidance from his woman. If his woman is giving him some good direction right now, he should listen. If his homeboy, I got homeboys, I'm going to shout them out. Check out Dr. Bobby Price. You know what I'm saying? That's my brother. We give each other guidance in certain situations, and we're both grown men, but we got to be willing to listen, because sometimes it's for our own good, right? All that to say, when you can never take the man's guidance in your relationship, I can almost guarantee you're going to end up having a lot of conflict, and peace is going to be robbed of that situation. And if there is maybe a struggle because maybe he has a bad track record, whatever, let's say he's a good man, but he struggles in this area, then what I would want to encourage you to do is sit down with him and figure out how we can get to a place where he is giving stronger, better guidance. What are the areas he needs to work on? And this is going to be his opportunity to take guidance from you or take correction from you, understand what you need from him. Maybe you can't take his guidance because he's overly aggressive and not considerate in the way that he talks to you. All right, if that's a problem, that's a fair argument. Then let's have that discussion. Let's help him understand. Listen, I'm willing to hear you out and listen to you, but I need you to be more considerate with how you talk to me. And if he's serious about loving you and being with you, he's got to be willing to make that correction. And then when he does, you got to be willing to follow through. That's it. There's a lot more we can talk about, but let's move on because I don't want to keep this video going too long. So let's move on to the next point. All right. So for the sake of not pushing this too long, forgive me for not going as deep as I want to with this. I'm going to just make this really fast to the point for this last one. It's a big one. It might need its own video. But number 7, be a man's peace. And hear me out before you jump down my throat. Pour into him sexually. Now listen, I already know some of y'all going to say, if he ain't my husband, and I'm not arguing with that, right? I do think that point is more for husband and wives. However, the reality is that many of you are already engaging sexually. And whether we want to talk about whether it's right or wrong, you should be waiting till marriage, all these things. The fact is, if you're going to engage in it, then you still have to be mindful of how you're going about it. Okay. But for the sake of, I'll just say this, because this is really more for married couples. But again, it can apply to anyone. Let's just be real about that. A lot of women go into the bedroom focused on what they want to do, not what he would like from you. Okay? Not considering his needs, his desires, making it a more difficult situation, and even thinking that simply engaging with him sexually is enough. There's a lot of men that, yes, their partner is willing to have sex with them whenever they want, but it's lackluster. It's whack. And it's whack because, it's not what you would like for it to be because she's unwilling to tap into what his true desires are. Now, granted, some guys may have some super freaky desires that cross lines that you are not comfortable with. This is why we need to have these discussions early on in the dating process to find out what page we're on when it comes to intimacy. And if we're just on different pages, then okay, then this is another example of we're just not for each other. I'm not going to tell you to compromise your beliefs and cross lines that go against what you believe in and your values. I'm going to say, if you make sure you're with someone that you are in alignment with in that way. And then if you are, make sure that you're tapping into those things the same way he should be tapping into yours. But again, this needs its own video. I just want to say be mindful of it, consider it, because it does have a huge impact on the peace, the harmony, the love in your relationships. And I want you to experience that peace, that harmony, that love to its fullest potential. Thank you for watching this video. I hope and pray it was helpful to you. Be sure to watch this one over here on 7 unattractive habits men get turned off by. The reality is that playing hard to get may work with the wrong guy. Now, when I say wrong guy, I don't necessarily mean a guy